Welcome to another episode of Don't Call It Small. I'm your host, Natasha Foreman. If you don't know me and you have no clue what this podcast is all about, let me share a bit. I'm a lead management consultant at Foreman & Associates, LLC, where we provide consulting and professional development services. And Don't Call It Small is where we talk all things business, share tips and news that you can use, and highlight the people and ideas behind the products and services that we buy. To learn more about our team, please visit foremanllc.com. That's FOREMANLLC.com. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. With all of the hundreds of podcasts that are available, we truly do appreciate it. I truly appreciate you stopping in and tuning in to us today and each week. Those of you that are new, we welcome you. Thank you so much for finding us. We hope that we're able to provide you with the information, the tools and resources that you need in order to grow and thrive. We're going to talk today, this is episode 70. We're going to be looking at starting a business while working starting a business or a new job while working for one. And that's always an interesting situation. I want to start off with, you guys know I love my quotes. I want to start off with a Steve Jobs quote. And Steve Jobs is attributed to saying, "I have looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today?" And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Whoa. Yes. That hit me. That hit me at my core, just thinking about that. So let's really look at that, okay? We're going to focus on that today in this time that we have together and really see what that entails for you, for me, for all of us, in the ways in which we need to make sure that we are pursuing what would make us feel like yes, or content, or satisfied, or victorious in what we're doing in that moment, in that day. We're going to start with those of you that are looking to, get a new job while you're working for one. So you're currently employed by someone and you're contemplating starting a second job. Now, my question that first comes to mind is, are you quitting the current job to pursue the new one? Or is the new one added income, which will add opportunities for growth? Or are you merely at the contemplation stage and you haven't been hired by a second company? You haven't applied for jobs yet. So based on that, we're going to approach this conversation through those lenses when we're dealing with those of you that have a job and you're pursuing a second job. And so something that comes through is, what's your motivation for quitting job A for job B, or for getting a second job so that you end up having two? So, when we think about that motivation, what is pulling at you? What is pushing you? Are you not happy where you are? Are you working in a toxic environment? Is there lack of growth and opportunities? Is job A just a temporary placeholder? What's going on? And will that second job provide the added income to cover in full, mind you, cover in full your monthly expenses? Will it help to pay down debt? Will it position you to have more money to travel alone or with family or friends, or, like I said, alone? Some of you may be like, I just need some alone time. But, will it help to save for a car, save for, a down payment, or, full on pay off for a home? Is it part of an investment strategy? So what is that motivation that's driving you? Will the second job enhance your learning? Will it provide further growth and development opportunities? Will it teach you new skills you can apply again in the future? And then I always ask myself, and I ask others, have you ever discussed growth opportunities with your current manager / supervisor, or the leadership team, right? Maybe you have access to the leadership team at your organization. Have you ever shared with them, here's where I currently am. Are there any opportunities for me to, move, laterally, upwardly, within this organization, other opportunities with some of the projects, whatever the case may be. If you're not asking, then you don't know. And it reminds me of a book, and I can't think of the name of it right now, it just popped in my head. But where one of the authors, it was a co-authored book, was talking about, oh goodness, I wish I remember the name of it, was talking about where oftentimes women in organizations have a tendency of not immediately or sometimes not at all ever verbalizing, articulating, expressing their willingness, their desire to pursue certain avenues within an organization. But they found in their research, or fell into their research in some regards, that there's the higher probability that men do. So if, like, for instance, the example was shared where the woman was in a law firm and she had always wanted to be a partner, but she had never told any of the partners or anyone else that she wanted to be partner. Well, one of her coworkers became partner before she did, and she was outraged. And so she said something to, her manager, and her manager was like, you never said you wanted to be partner. This guy said in his interview that he had a desire to become partner one day. We knew, we had been tracking him from the moment he started with the company. We always assumed that you were just content in serving in your role and in the capacity that you were. And so that really made me think, like, how many of us are feeling stuck or feeling like we're being overlooked or passed over? And the thing is that we've never actually expressed to those that have the power to promote us, that what if we actually have said up front, or at some point when it is become a desire for us, that, hey, I am really interested in making, different moves and exploring this. And maybe the company has operations in Japan or has operations in Brazil. And you're like, I would really like an opportunity to be able to work in those areas and be able to, learn there and apply what I've learned here, and so on and so forth, right? Like, but if you never share that, if you never share that, right now I am a busser in a restaurant, but I have desire to be in management, how will management ever know, right? Because your restaurant manager may have desires to be a regional manager or whatever, right? And so if they don't know who could possibly come up the ranks to one day replace them, they'll end up putting someone else in place who may not necessarily actually really desire that role, that experience, that opportunity. So that's just something that really just came to mind right now. So I just, wanted to just kind of put that out there. Now, something that I wanted to also make sure to stress is that I can quickly ping over to those of you who are considering that, that hat that reads self-employed, right? Or, boss chick or boss or whatever, your hat says. My question to you is, what is your motivation? Why do you want to start a business? What do you expect to gain from starting this business, right? Right now you're working for someone. What do you expect to gain? And did you say freedom? Have you listened to any of the episodes before? It's always something that kind of tickles me pink, because most of us all say that, when we first started. I remember when I started as an adult, I started, a business when I was a kid, but as an adult, I remember one of the things, I want freedom, so that's always interesting that we say that, the freedom. But I ask, freedom from what? From who? From where? When do you expect this freedom to occur? How will it happen? Who will help you get there? Will it be family? Will it be friends? Cue in nails screeching over chalkboard. Okay, I need you to write down somewhere, reminder, listen to episode 66, Doing Business with Family. I just really need you guys to listen to the episode. Now, if the goal of starting your business is to spend more time with family, that is only possible if A, family works with you, B, you invest so much time and sweat into your business, building it with a strong and growing team who are empowered and equipped to run things without you, which means sacrificing time with family in the early years for a chance at said freedom in the latter years. It's difficult but doable, right? It requires intentionality, focus, planning, organizing, strong leadership, and some really great control mechanisms that can track and measure as you learn, adapt, and change, and meet the required standards over and over and over again. This sort of makes me think about a quote from Oprah Winfrey, and she said, "Do what you have to do until you can do what you want to do." So you're gonna have to, put in the work and do what you have to do in order to be able to get that freedom. Just understand that starting a business, going to a new job, buying a house, whatever, does not mean that all of a sudden it's, mystically, magically, everything is just perfect, right? It's not that all of a sudden you have this. It's something that you're going to have to work towards. It has to be intentional. So that's the reason why when people say there's no such thing as work-life balance, I always get upset, because yes, there is. You have to be intentional. You craft out your balance. I think a lot of times people are expecting the universe to balance itself for you. You're expecting externally for things to be made possible for you. You have to create that. When we say there's no work-life balance, you are then choosing to be the victim of this imbalance. And I say, poo-poo on that. That's no. That's not how it goes. If you don't want to work 90-hour weeks, don't work 90-hour weeks. You may have to adjust some things. Maybe you're living above your means, and so you're having to work all those hours in order to now finance this lifestyle that you have. You may need to wait for that lifestyle. You haven't elevated to that where you can do it with less time, with less energy. Does that make sense? Like, I think sometimes we try to get to the finish line, but we haven't, you're trying to get to that, the winner's stage, right? You're trying to get to that medal platform, but you haven't put in the work for it. And at the same token, you haven't defined what truly is that you want. It's that why. I keep talking about that motivation. I think so much is tied to it. And so we have to be mindful of that. We really do. We really do. So I recommend listening to episodes 55 and 59 to be able to hone in on how to focus on time management and self-confidence, because both of those are key for no matter whether you're trying to start a business while working for a company, or if you're trying to get a second job because you're trying to replace the first one, or because you just need that secondary income. You still need to make sure that you are highly tuned and trained in time management and self-confidence. And I recommend that you have your family and friends listen to the episode on supporting the entrepreneur in your life. And if you're working from home, and I forgot which episode is that one? I'll double back to that one. And then because I'm like, what is the episode? And then we have episode 38, I believe, which is the tips for managing your work life and your home life. So that is something else that I strongly believe, because you need to be able to create the infrastructure and what you need to work for you. Stop expecting everyone and everything to adjust for you, if that makes sense. You have to be the adjuster. So things aren't, it's not that things are happening to you, is that you're making things happen. That is how you should operate. And at that point, when you operate from that lens, then guess what? Nothing is then defining you and what's for you. I hope that makes sense. Does it make sense? I hope so. And I just thought of it. I see my notes. So episode 47 is supporting the entrepreneur in your life. So that is the episode that I strongly recommend that you have family and friends listen to. Just, send them a link to it. Say, hey, check this out. Right? Or, hey, this is a great episode I heard. I think, something that, you would also find interesting, and, let's talk about it. And then, as I said, episode 38 helps provide some tips for managing your work life and your home life. Now, back to employees contemplating quitting jobs after securing your second one, or you're trying to juggle both. So I'm speaking to those of you that, you're trying to get a second job, you're trying to, replace the first job with it, or you're trying to get a second job because you want that dual income. There's a quote that I have, and I don't know who it's from. It's anonymous. It says, never be afraid to try something new. Remember, amateurs built the Ark, professionals built the Titanic. I'm sure you've heard that, right? That quote before. Many of us have. So, my mom always says, don't quit your job until you have a new one lined up. That is the old school principle. It definitely, it makes sense, right? Because if you quit, you don't have one, you could be looking really silly unless you have, savings and things that are set in place and you're good to go in that, but my mom used to get frustrated with me because I would quit a job. She's like, well, did you already have another job lined up? I'm like, no. I quit because it was toxic, or I quit because whatever. I quit a job when I found out that, it wasn't, they were doing some interesting stuff and I didn't want to take part in it. I wasn't going to wait to find another job and get caught up in that mousetrap. But, it is a solid principle to have, is to make sure you have a second job lined up. Now, I will say this because I see it so often. I've seen it and it really frustrates me. Whatever you do, don't slack off on your first job while applying for the second one. Even if that second one is to be that secondary income, you're not replacing the first job. And even if it's a case of, you're trying to start your business while employed, do not slack off on that first job. Understand that, especially if your work is tracked, it's measured through control mechanisms like reporting. Those we could see, you can see it, you can measure it, where all of a sudden, your productivity goes down, the quality of your work goes down, you're showing up late, you keep doing this and that. It's just like, what's going on with, Natasha? What's going on with Bill? What's going on with, Susie? What's going on with Jackie? And what's going on is that you're splitting your focus, and you're splitting it so much that the first job is now suffering, right? It's like cheating in a relationship. You end up being so enamored by this new relationship that you have started that the main relationship, you start to, backslide, and, you start being negligent and neglectful, and sometimes you become a little combative too, right? Because your main relationship is starting to question you, and you start feeling some kind of way about being questioned. Well, that's what happens when you do the same thing in the workplace. So I just want to stress that. And don't use, because there's another thing, don't use your job A's work hours searching and applying for job B. Oh my goodness. I remember a client I had. He had a law firm, and his front desk receptionist / office manager, she would be filling out completing her resume and applying for positions and other stuff. She was even on different dating sites, but we won't go there. But while she's at work. So while she's supposed to be doing her work for this job, she is focusing on her career moves. Now let that sit in. Let this settle in your mind for a second. Maybe some of you have done it, but don't do that. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a second, but I want you guys to also check and see the workplace policies about working at multiple companies, because the question is, are you applying to competitors of your current job? And if so, that's a red flag. That's a big no-no. So you don't want to do that. If you're planning to quit job A, what does your employment contract say? If you're planning to stay with job A and canoodle with their competition, you guys just expect to get a big old chunk ripped out of your backside. Like, it's just not the thing to do at all. What you do will come back to and on you. You just have to know that. It may not be immediate, but it will happen. It just has to. That energy cast out there comes back. So I want to make sure, if you don't have an employment contract, you need to be able to still see, what potentially can be the blowback for going to the competition. I just want you to visualize you having employees and your employees doing this to you. Because that's what it kind of equates to, is the same. So just be mindful of that. And with that, I was visualizing that, like how that happens, that I'm going to go on. But something else, if you're quitting, because I've always stressed this, make sure you give your notice when, job B has finally hired you. So, and that doesn't mean your notice is, hey, I'm out of here tomorrow. Or, hey, it's a Friday. Hey, I'm out of here on Monday. And I know that many of you do it because, especially if you work in states that are at-will states, and you figure, well, my employer can just fire me at will, on a Friday or whatever. And they're not giving me a 2-week notice or a, 1-month notice. And you're right. That's true. And even if you don't work in an at-will state, your boss can fire you on a Friday. It's interesting they do that, right? They'll fire you. And I get it. But I want you to think it's this is about you, not about them. So job B has formally hired you on. And this is if you're planning on quitting job A. 2 weeks is usually standard. 1 month plus is valued, especially when your position has a domino effect on other players on your team. So if you're on the executive level and management, you're responsible for several or numerous client accounts. Just respect these stakeholders enough to help with the transition to the new manager or associate or whatever. The thing is that this is your character. This is your reputation. It follows you, right? Where your name has weight to it. When people hear it and they say it, what is it what's being expressed, what's being exchanged in that? And then I just want to say, leave how you want to be left. In that relationship, how you wish someone would end one with you. Preferably, just like you started it, right? With respect and care and appreciation and adoration. I mean, I get it. If stuff is really intense and it's gotten a little combative, I get it. But even still, how would you want someone to break up with you? And that leads me to, don't burn every bridge you cross, because some may be helpful when building new bridges, right? Some very much can can come in to help. So just come on, y'all. And another thing too, that's so funny. Some of you are so excited about getting this second job to replace the first job that you quit, right? Or you gave notice. You either quit or you gave notice. But you didn't formally get hired by the second job. You got that preliminary, but you did not get the formal, you're hired. And I have seen the absolute horror on people's faces when they're like, but they said I got the job. But you got the job, and then all of a sudden they did a background check on you or credit check on you, and then all of a sudden they're like, woo, red flag, we can't hire you. We can't. So, it was a great interview process, but we can't hire you. And now you have 0 jobs. So that is something that I definitely stress. And there's a quote from Seth Godin that says, winners quit all the time. They just quit the right stuff at the right time. So that leads me back to motivation. And you need to be crystal clear on your why. Listen to episodes 61 and 62. And when you do, you'll see that we're really looking close at the career paths that you're pursuing or dreaming about to help really focus in on your why. I don't know who said it, but I saw somewhere where it says you can quit your job, but you can't quit your calling. And so sometimes you're being pulled in different directions, and you have to understand it's by opposing forces. So you need to be able to discern, to ascertain which one is pulling you towards your calling and which one is trying to position you in hell on earth, surrounded by the most asinine coworkers. Because that's what we end up with, right? You have to then understand in your discernment that you don't want fear or greed to drive your decision. When you let either of those drive your decision, that can be a recipe for disaster. It truly, truly can. And so I do want to stress that. Don't do it. Don't do it. It can really cause some issues. Okay? It really can. So there's a quote from Mark Manson that says, at some point, most of us reach a place where we're afraid to fail, where we instinctively avoid failure and stick only to what is placed in front of us or only what we're already good at. This confines us and stifles us. We can be truly successful only at something we're willing to fail at. If we're unwilling to fail, then we're unwilling to succeed. And there you go. There you go. So I just want that to kind of like sink in, soak in, be marinated, absorbed. And now I want to speak to those of you who are starting a business while employed. I will say this, it is a good hedge against some of the typical startup risk because, you have income from your job that's adding stability and confidence as you put your toes in the pool of business ownership. And many businesses fail in year 1. The average is between year 5 and 7. But I want you to look at some things. You have to keep that job while you're building that business until your business is demanding more of you because of customer orders or project volume, and your revenue from the business is providing you with an income that matches, but actually you really need to be looking at that's better yet that exceeds your income from the job. And preferably an revenue that is, and I should say not a revenue, your income, because it's what you're being paid through your company. A lot of times people start companies and they're looking at the revenue the company is bringing in. Boo boo. That's not your income. That's the business income. What are you paying yourself from that business? That is the key factor in the decisions you start to make. Your operations revenue and what goes towards that budget is not what is factored into your family household situation, your personal bank account. I don't care if you have a solopreneurship or an LLC and it's being taxed that way. That has nothing to do with those two accounting systems, right? Your checks and balances for your personal is supposed to be separate. Don't commingle it. I know that you're taxed as one whole big enchilada, but when you're looking at the moves that you're making, you have to say, this is what the business is making. If you are not in a position to pay yourself from that business, if every penny that comes in has to then be reinvested back into the business side, you can't yet afford to pay yourself, then you're not in the position to quit that day job. If your job is paying for the roof over your head and your vehicle and putting the food in your belly, so on and so forth, don't close off that bridge. Don't cut that off. So you should look at the income that I'm now generating, that I am paying myself from my company. It needs to be roughly 25 to 75% more than what I'm getting from my day job. At that point, I can then say, all right, okay, everything's getting intense. I'm far exceeding it, and we're going to go in depth in this, because I don't want it to be like, well, that's what I got, and you bounce. Just listen. As you're getting this, as you're finally in a position to pay yourself, and hopefully, like I said, you're not just taking the money from the business and using it for yourself. What are you paying yourself from your business? You could then increase your positioning, where you could set aside funds for investments, for rainy day funds, extreme chaos, because we have them, right? Because you have to understand that your new business, just like all new businesses, go through life cycles. It goes through high and lows. You can be buzzing and like, oh yeah, and you're putting everything on Instagram and everything else, and then all of a sudden you hit these lows, and then you hit these lows where you're not, and we see that through the pandemic. How many people got hit and they weren't expecting it? Like, they weren't expecting it to endure for as long as it does, or it has, right? So with that, I want you to use any added income from, that you're generating, that could help pay down or pay off your debt. It's a great strategy if you can work it. You really can. You can balance the two. But I see so many times where, you have this job and you start this business and you're like, I'm quitting because I'm going to focus on this. And then what happens is you end up saying, oh, you have this like almost like buyer's remorse, right? It's startup remorse, but now you have no choice but to just kind of like dive in it and just, suck it up, because you don't want anyone saying that you failed at something. But you have to, and I know, I've done it myself, and I know it's this anxiousness, it's this desire to pursue something that is yours, and so you want to pour all of yourself into it, and you're just so excited, and it's mine. But the thing is that you have to be mature about it, and you have to sit back and say, especially if you have a family, if you have, a spouse or a significant other and you have children, you have an obligation to not be reckless when it comes to that overhead, right? You just have that. You should be able to track, measure, and validate your business model with real paying customers, and then see how your business adjusts as you experience several consistent months of a growing customer base. Like, you need to be able to see this. You need to be able to, like I said, it needs to exceed your job income, 25 to 75%, not revenue from the company, what you're paying yourself. You have to be mindful of that. And this is just a bonus reason for not employing family. And I'm going to say this because, especially not immediate family, like, distant family. Okay, I kind of get it. But when you're looking at your spouse, your kids, because here's the thing, when that money does flow in, you'll want to celebrate and you'll want to go on a trip. Let's go to Disneyland. Let's go to Disney World. Let's go to whatever. Let's go to Bermuda. But you can't, because the next thing is, well, who's going to run things while we're gone? You want to reward yourself and your family for the sacrifice that it took to get to that stage. You don't want to further punish you and them. So, just understand that you need to build a team and build it strong so that you can position you and your family to then have those trips, those vacations, those mini breaks, those big breaks, that freedom that you're aiming for. And so it's just like prioritizing time for them, through your 9 to 5. You'll need to really be on it when you add that 7 to 11 or 9 to 12 a.m. business that you're building, because now you're taking even more time away from them. So you have to prioritize it. Now, I want to go back to contracts. I mentioned, those employment contracts. If you're starting or you've started a business and you're employed by another company, right? And there's inventions and intellectual property that's at risk, you need to make sure that you seek legal help and fast, because you need to make sure that you're not crossing any boundaries, that you're not violating any policies or any laws. If your company is or will compete in any way with your current employer, you need to think about how you would feel if someone did that to you. Just first think about that. Okay? Understand that it's a major conflict of interest for you to still be working for them and you're competing with them or planning to. And then here's something, I'm just going to keep it real with you. How long are you going to mooch off of them while trying to get yourself up to eventually compete for the same market share that they're pursuing? You guys, it's unethical, it's tacky, and it's possibly a lawsuit. I mean, if you are seen as a real perceived threat, it's a lawsuit. It really is. Now, if your business will not be in competition with your current employer, you could position yourself, and here's something really key, and I don't think a lot of people think about it. You could position yourself in your business to be a strategic ally or customer or client, or you can have them as a customer or client. You never know, depending on how well you've nurtured your relationship with your employer. They might even invest in your business or consider holding equity in your business through a JV, a joint venture. In all of these scenarios, of course, I will always say you need a seasoned attorney to assist you. And please make sure you have the right attorney. Like, if you're dealing with stuff with intellectual property, so on and so, you need to have a lawyer who that's what they focus on. That's what they specialize in. You need someone that's a corporate lawyer. Don't have a divorce lawyer looking over stuff for you. Like, don't. Be about your business. Okay? Get the right folks. You want to, and the thing is this, you may say, oh gosh, it's going to cost me some money. I'm telling you now, it's going to cost you more money if you get yourself entangled in something that legally you're going to need a lawyer to help get you out of, or to help, reduce the intensity of the butt kicking that you're going to get. And of course, there are some legal services out there, and that you can be able to find online, but just make sure that you find a legit and reputable lawyer. And something else that's important, before even all of these various steps is, make sure that you guys are choosing the right business to start the right second job, right? To secure. Does that make sense? If neither are truly fit for part-time. So if you're trying to start a business, if you're trying to get a second job, so I'm speaking to both of you now, you got to make sure you're choosing the right business to start. You have to make sure you're choosing the right second job to secure. If they aren't meant for part-time involvement from you, it won't suit you well if you can only work part-time hours in the beginning. Let me break this down. If you know you can only do part-time for the next 12 to 24 months, right, through this second job or by starting this business, you know that you can only do part-time because you're working full-time at your at job A. And you know that you can only do part-time for 12 to 24 months. You're going to have to readjust your thinking. I found this quote, and it says, "Be stubborn about your goals and flexible about your methods." That's exactly what you're going to have to do. You pursuing a second job or pursuing a business that is going to require your full-time investment is not going to flow well for you when it's combined with your job A, this full-time. So here's some businesses that, for the most part, require you full-time. Retail stores, food stores, restaurants, catering, with some exceptions, right? This is for those of you that are trying to start a business. If you're trying to start a business, it's a retail, a food store type, a restaurant, catering. There are some exceptions to the catering. And I will say this, with catering, you can build out your jobs, the catering jobs, in a way that doesn't steamroll you. So it does require you to not say yes to every request, but you're going to have to say yes to the right request at the right time. You see how I just, put a different spin on Seth's quitting quote from earlier? So just be mindful of that. Those of you that are starting business, those of you that have already started a business and you feel that struggle and you're just feeling overwhelmed, that's because you started a business that really does need your full-time attention and care. Like, have you ever watched Shark Tank and, the sharks are asking these folks who are asking them for money, what do you do? Are all you doing is this business? Are you just living, breathing, eating this business? Or, do you have a job? And, the ones who are like, oh, I work full time as a blah, blah, blah. And the sharks always say, so then how are you going to actually invest the time that you need in your business? And they're like, and then the sharks, they know, they're not stupid. They're like, oh, so that's what you want me to do. So you want me to run your business while you keep, putting in your hours at your day job so that you can have the best of both worlds. That's what you want. Like, we don't have our own businesses to run, right? So you just understand the industry, understand what's going to be expected from that relationship. There are some businesses that you can start that are doable in a part-time, capacity at the beginning. There are certain jobs that you can do part-time as a secondary job that they're not going to expect full-time hours. But you definitely have to, look at all these different things. And I will say this, consider what we addressed in episode 56, Customer Engagement 101, which is setting the rules of engagement, so that you can create the ecosystem that works for you in the early stages and years later, while you're also, of course, appealing to the needs and perceived needs of your customers. Because if you work full-time, 35 to 70 hours a week for your employer, for job A, how much time is to be carved out for your business startup, for your family, your personal growth and development? for sleep and the other two S's that you do daily, or most of you, I think. Right? Think about that. Do the hours at your job rotate? Do they fluctuate? How will you build your business around that model? How will you course correct? And the same is true if you're trying to gain a second job. You have to then factor in, okay, if I'm doing 35 to 70 hours at job A, my other job cannot be more than blank hours. So whatever those are, because I need to make sure that I have time to sleep and, my own personal wellness and health. I need time for family. I need time for personal growth and development, right? So you got to be able to carve that. You only have 24 hours. Of those 24 hours, we're saying 6 to 8 of them you're supposed to be sleeping. About an hour of or two of your day is consumed in, the bathroom, and how many hours are carved away for work, how many hours are carved for family, how many hours are carved for you to be doing, personal development, professional development. How much time is carved out for you to exercise? Is it 20 minutes? Is it 30 minutes? Is it an hour? Like, what is it? You really do need to map this out. So you have to say, what is my plan for getting quality, qualified, and competent people to help me? Because that's what you're going to need. You need to be able to now build a team around yourself. Once again, it's not what someone and something is doing to you, or it is what you are making happen. What irks me is this, especially when we talk about folks starting businesses and, building out this team or whatever. It irks me when I hear someone say, well, I work better alone, or it's easier or faster if I do it. And I feel like my molars want to just pop out of my mouth. It's a recipe for disaster. You're gonna be stuck. You will stay stuck, handcuffed and shackled and kicked in the mouth by your business when you're thinking and operating that way. The same is true for those of you that work for a company and, you're in a management position, but you don't like to delegate. And I get it. I struggled with it. I still struggle with saying, okay, what can I delegate? There's a lot of things I could delegate, but I'm like, you have to be intentional with that. You have to want to be free from a lot of that. There's probably about 80% of stuff that can be delegated so that you can focus on the 20% of the stuff that's actually going to be those heavy, hard, concepts, the ones that are generated, that need, 80% of your energy is really coming from 20% of what's really on your plate. And the thing is that then we want to complain. It's like we're setting ourselves up to be martyrs. We want to be the victim. We want to sit back and complain on social media and wherever else, and to drain everyone that we have lunch or dinner with, so we can complain about our day. And the thing is that we are creating it. We really are. We are we are the people putting the shackles on ourselves. There's no freedom on that path. There is, however, a lot of burnout, health issues, relationship explosions. So let's pivot quickly. Whether starting a business to have on the side or to eventually, push out and break up with your day job, don't spend too much time chatting it up about your business with coworkers. You have to remember you're on the clock at job A. Even if you're salaried, it's their time you're wasting. And I shouldn't have to say this, but I will. This also extends to talking shop with your employers, customers, clients, and suppliers, because I've seen it. I've heard about it. I've seen people do it. You guys are crossing boundary lines. So don't bring your business work to your employer space, and learn to create your own boundaries by not bringing work from job A into your startup zone. And for those of you that are working remotely or virtually, whatever, with the company, you really need to establish and respect these boundaries. So whether you are starting a business on the side or you are picking up a second job, and if you are working remotely doing this, You need to physically separate your work products and tools and stuff. It needs to be a clear demarcation. Don't use your employer's postal accounts, right? The UPS and FedEx accounts to mail and ship things for your business or for your second job. Folks, you're stealing from the company. Don't use your employer's computers, printer, fax machines, or any other property for your business or for your second job. If you have a second job, they need to provide you with that equipment. If this is your business, then you need to invest in separate equipment for your business. And if you can't afford to at this stage, then guess what? You need to take your tail on down to Staples, Office Depot, Office Max, the library, or wherever someone has a fax machine, a computer, a printer, and use theirs. Pay for that access. And yes, that also means don't use your employer's office supplies. Don't sit up here and be ramming through their reams of paper, their Post-it notes, their pen, all that other stuff. Get your own. I'm telling you guys, it's going to come back on you. You're going to end up hiring someone just like you. And you're going to complain and whine and cry. And guess what? They're literally just the mirror image of you and all the ignorant things that you did to your employer. Just because they don't know does not mean that it ain't, you know what I mean? Like you guys think, oh, well, they don't know what I'm doing. But you know what you're doing. So just think about that. And trust and believe me, I'm telling you, we always do. Just like, we end up with children that are just like us. That's God's sense of humor. You're going to end up with employees just like you. Those of you that are seeking a second job and you want 2 streams of income, you're not quitting job A for job B. You want to have both jobs. Many of those same rules and tips that I've just shared apply to you. So I want you to be realistic about your working hours at both jobs, as I mentioned earlier. Don't ask for, burnout to sucker punch you, because that's what we do. We end up trying to do way too much, and as I'm going to keep saying this, don't let fear and or greed convince you to accept and ask for every available shift or project or client so you can stack chips faster. You guys, you're positioning yourself to end up in a hospital bed or the morgue. Let's just be real. Like, I'm being realistic with you. It's not healthy. It's not healthy. It doesn't matter what you can stack if you can't embrace it, if you can't enjoy it, if you can't see the smiles and feel the warmth of your loved ones enjoying it with you. So you need to set goals and objectives for your job search based off of your why. Let your employer at job A know you're seeking extra work, more hours. And I'm saying this as a way of, just like I mentioned earlier about the ways in which you don't know what opportunities lie within the organization, you might find an opportunity where you hadn't initially considered. If your employer can't give you more work, and I understand that, reassure them. You have to reassure them that you're rolling with them still at the same time that you're planning on picking up hours with a second employer, but that you intend to work around job A's hours. You got to reassure them. That will calm their initial anxiety. When you're applying for the second job, you guys have to be open and honest about job A. Look, cheaters get caught because the lie has to serve. Stop doing the deception thing. Be honest. Just be honest. Hey, yes, I have this job. No, I'm not quitting it. Did you need me to quit it? Because your job is part-time. I have this job over here. This is the hours that you're asking me to work don't conflict with the hours I currently work. So we're good with that. You have to be open and honest about job A, and that you aren't trying to end that relationship, at least no time soon, and that you're looking for a second one to complement it and the system that you're trying to create, the goals you're trying to pursue. When you're honest, you can avoid schedule conflicts and bruised egos and more, as I've said so many times. and I tell clients, I tell students this: adults are oversized children. They will definitely act up, not ask questions, and blame you for the confusion and for their temper tantrum. They just will. But as I've been trying to stress, you never know. One day you may position yourself to take on, a contract or freelance work, or start your own side gig, right? You could. And then look at that. You could then turn around and, a year or two or so from now, you could be like, you know what? I'm really vibing off of what I'm doing. I love this, and I would love to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And you'll find yourself listening to this episode again, right? To listen to the do's and don'ts of starting a business while working for one. Like, that is the whole goal. Is I'm trying to, in all the things in my own screw ups, but also the screw ups of other people. We learn from what we walk through, but we also learn from seeing what other people walk through. I don't need to put my hands on fire to know fire's hot. I saw folks get burned. I heard about folks getting burned. I don't need to get burned to realize the fire's hot. And so it's the same in all the different ways in which how we learn and how we can apply that. So I hope that what I've shared today has been beneficial. It's just a small taste. It's a sampler. It's an appetizer that, it points you to your next course. So, there'll be other opportunities through this podcast. There'll be other opportunities that Foreman Associates offers that will present you with a chance to learn more and to grow more. Now, that alarm I just set that was not really supposed to go off, but boom, it did. It was supposed to remind me about my business shout outs. So let's look at some really cool people and businesses, because it's business shout out time. So maybe that is actually a good little cue in. Maybe I will have that so you guys can listen for that. Our first shout out is Clara Foster, aka Charlie. And she has Charlie Ann Designs in Memphis, Tennessee. Started her business because guess what, you guys? She's going to be going to grad school, and she found out, like so many of us did, that she can't have a full-time job in her doctoral program. Nope. They need you 100% focused. So she started out making stickers to sell, and she's now expanded to screen printing t-shirts and sweatshirts by hand. She even has a reusable cotton canvas tote bag that it says it's called Treat the Earth with Kindness. It's really cute. And you can use it at the beach or to grab a few items at the grocery store, or just because you just want to hang around and you want to, have this trendy bag. She even makes acrylic pieces by hand. So I want you guys to support Clara, support Charlie, as she, in this business realm, she goes by Charlie. So I want you guys to support her. You see where she's going. Her focus is on her doctoral program. She needs to be able to have that support, the finances, so that she can then focus, right? See, there's her why. She can then focus on her doctoral program without the stressors and the concerns that most of us have financially. And that's the reason why we try to then have a job on the side. And what's gonna suffer? Your studies and your doctoral program. What's also going to suffer is most likely the amount of what you can do in the workplace, because you're going to be drained. It just comes with it. So visit her site, Charlie Ann Designs, CharlieANN Designs.com. On Instagram, she's at _CA.designs. Of course, just like all episodes, her information and the other businesses that we'll be shouting out is in the podcast description, as well as we have it featured on our blog and our social media. So kudos to you, Charlie. I am proud of you, and I am glad to see that you are reimagining how you can be able to pursue and achieve your goals and dreams. Next up, we have those of you that, if you're into astrology, Birth Date Co. So Birth Date Company, Birth Date Co. They craft personalized products based off your astrological sign. So they have candles and books and gift sets and bundles. And I don't mean hair bundles, ladies. Like, I just want to make sure I'm clear with that. They have Mother's Day. They have a Mother's Day special you need to check out. I think it's tied to either there's one of their sets or their bundles. And they have gift cards and a referral program where you get $10 for each friend you refer to them who spends $50 or more. And as I share with you guys plenty of times, Foreman Associates nor myself, we don't get anything from any of this. So we're not part of this referral program. We don't, or any other referral program. We don't get any type of perks or any type of discounts, or no one is paying us. These aren't paid advertisements or anything of the sort. We're just shouting out and showing love to these individuals, to these businesses. So I just want to make sure I stress that. So I want you guys to visit birthdate.co. So they're not .com, they're .co. And on Instagram, they're birthdateco. So those of you that want to be able to zoom in and highlight your astrological sign, this or for a loved one, it's a great way to do so. And I just want, because I know there's always someone who wonders, well, they make candles. So what are their candles made out of? So their candles are made from all natural, a blend of soy, coconut, apricot wax, and custom natural fragrance oils. The glass jars are reusable and recyclable, and the wick is 100% cotton. And all of it is made in small batches in Northeast U.S. So in the Northeast, somewhere in the Northeast of the United States. So once again, birthdate.co. And then last but not least, we have Funky Flair Boutique. They have been voted the boutique to visit by Fashion Bomb Daily. They're located in Marietta, Georgia, at 3020 Canton Road. And they have been in business they've been there since November 2012. Their hours of operation are Wednesday to Friday, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday, 11 to 4 p.m. Remember what we talked about in our setting the rules of engagement for our customers, right? In that episode, we talked about those defined hours. So that means that you then know you can't go there Monday and Tuesday and Sunday because they're closed. See, creating that boundary, those structures. At the same time, understanding that those hours are from 12 to 6. There's going to be someone that's going to be there at 11:30. They see you inside your store. Why won't she open? Because I open my doors at 12. I close my doors at 6. You showing up at 7:30 p.m., I'm not having it. So these are all the different things that so many of us need to make sure that we're really clear on. So Funky Flair Boutique, I just told you guys, Wednesday to Friday from 12 to 6, Saturday 11 to 4. Their store phone number is area code 770-419-3606. That's 770-419-3606. They provide women's clothing and accessories, quote, for the woman who is confident, bold, and a trendsetter who wants to make a statement with fashion. There you go. They have clothing and accessories from casual to jaw-dropping. And guess what? You can host a private shopping party with at least 7 of your friends. And while you all are shopping, you can enjoy light refreshments and professional styling services. So call for pricing and to book your party, 770-419-3606. That's Funky Flair Boutique. Their website is Funky Flair, FLAIR boutique.com. On Instagram, they're at Funky Flair Boutique. Yes, I love it. So, there we go, you guys. We're at that time. It's that time. Yes. Before we go, I want to share a quote with you guys. I don't know who it's from. It's an unknown quote, and it says, sometimes what you're most afraid of doing is the very thing that will set you free. And I have another quote. That quote says, growth is painful, change is painful, but nothing is as painful as staying stuck somewhere you don't belong. And you know what? While I'm at it, I'm going to share a third quote. I'm just going to layer you guys up with some quotes. I'm just going to envelop you in them. This one says, your new life begins now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not next month, not next year, not when you quit your job. And I'm going to add this. And not when you get a second job or start a business or when life gets better and easier. Your new life begins now. Now. So choose now. Choose now. All right, folks, it's time to wrap up, go our separate ways until next week. If you have any questions or suggestions about this show, email them to us at don'tcallitsmallbiz@gmail.com. You can also go to foremanllc.com /podcast. And there we have a form that you can be able to fill out. And with that, check us out on Facebook at Foreman and Associates, on Instagram and Twitter at Foreman LLC. Our podcast Twitter handle is It Ain't Small, and our podcast Instagram is Don't Call It Small. Be sure to also follow us and share us with your friends, colleagues, and family. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. I'm not so often on LinkedIn, but I'm there at Natasha L. Foreman. Reach out to me, say hello, share your story. Don't try to sell me anything. I'm joking, but I'm not. I look forward really to meeting you, connecting with you. I want to make sure I give proper credit for this show theme song is Higher Up by Shane Ivers. Thank you guys for tuning into the Don't Call It Small Business Podcast, sharing these episodes each and every week. And don't forget what I tell you on each and every episode. Don't call what you're planning, thinking, dreaming, or doing little or small. Go big, go bold, or go nowhere. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Like I said, when we started in this episode, there's hundreds of podcasts out there. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. I will see you here next week for episode 71. Have a super awesome day and week. No, matter of fact, make it a super awesome day. I'll see you all soon. Take care.